Money isn't real, George. Doesn't matter. It only seems like it does.
Welcome to Pimpy's Investment Chat, where we keep investment talk simple. And here's your host, Pimpy.
What is going on out there, peeps? I think it was about 2015 when I started my Facebook group called The Hidden Things in Front of Your Eyes. I was warning people back then that the death of the dollar was coming and that people should invest into precious metals. And people kept giving me crap over and over saying there's no way the US dollar is going to die. It's never going to happen. The world relies on it too much. And I kept saying, you're wrong, that day is coming. And that day is almost here. Let's cover this, because if you still have your money in the bank, before we get started, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button. And if you're not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I certainly do appreciate it. If you're thinking about buying gold and silver, head on over to our friends at Money Metals Exchange. The link will be down below in the description. If you are a first-time buyer and you spend more than $100, use promo code PIMPYSILVER. Yes, it has changed. PIMPYSILVER. So if you're watching this video and it's an older video, make sure you check on current videos, because the code is going to be changing from time to time from now on. Also, I can be found on other platforms. Everybody knows I have my own website, Pimpy's News Network. Over here, I post videos that I can't get away with over on YouTube. Also, I have a group on Facebook called Pimpy's Investment Chat. Over here, we do talk about gold, silver, cryptocurrencies, as well as foreign currency investments. Come on over here and join us. It's free to do so. You can also come follow me on Twitter, MeWe, YouTube, and Odyssey. The links for all these platforms will be down below in the description. So for whatever reason, if I get removed off of one platform, you could find me on the others. For those of you looking for my address, there it is right here. Feel free to pause the video and write it down and reach out to me. Just a reminder, remember humans, that when the banks die, they take the debt with them. They're talking about the debt instruments. They're talking about your dollars. Your dollars go with them. As I'm cruising through YouTube, watching videos of people that I respect, I couldn't help but glance over to the right and notice the list of videos that were currently showing. Everybody that knows their butt from a hole in the ground knows the dollar is dying. It's dead. And if you have your money in the bank, you're going to regret it. You can see the names of these videos. What if the U.S. economy crashes? What is the future of the U.S. dollar? Are its days as the world's dominance near the end, is what it says. Major wipeout of fiat currencies this year to cut. So look at dollar to crash 50%. I told you guys if we lose our reserve status, we could lose anywhere between 40, 50, 60% of its value, of its purchasing power. And that's why you should be in precious metals. How the loss of world reserve currency status impacts us. There's my buddy Lynette Zhang, even Robert Kawasaki. Will the US dollar die? If you watch the video, he's going to tell you yes. As a matter of fact, it's pretty much dead. There is a video out there I'll try to get to at the end of this particular video. It just depends on how long this goes. But then you'll understand this particular meme. Your tax-paid dollars under democratic control. So we saw a nice little bump again in cryptocurrencies. What little gain they did get, they appear to have lost. Having said that, Bitcoin, along with a lot of other cryptos, had passed certain resistant levels. At least they're plateauing under more current highs. So Bitcoin's at $23,535. Ethereum kicking butt, $1,643. XRP, the New World Order coins, at 41 cents. Cardano's at 40 cents. Dogecoin's at 9 cents. Polygon at $1.18. Solana at $24.43. Polkadot at $6.71. And look at Litecoin trying to get over $100 again. $99.23. Shiba at 4013. But here's the interesting thing. I can show you over here the 52-week average. What that is over the last 52 weeks, they show you the lowest and the highest points. The little blue dot that you see here, you want it to get over to the right as much as possible. That means it's starting to go in the right direction as far as its values are concerned. Lots of these cryptos were stuck all the way over to the far left and hadn't moved in a long time. You can see many of the cryptos are somewhere about 1/4 of the way up, which means they did gain a little bit of their value back and seem to be heading in the right direction. At least there are some movements on there. If you look at crypto like Polygon, they're almost at the halfway mark. If you look at Litecoin, I'm sure Lisa's going to love this, they're past the halfway mark between their lowest and highest points. That's what you want to see happen to your cryptocurrencies, okay? Some type of movement, but still you're looking for consistency. Terra Luna is at 3018. It's been slowly creeping up. Like I said, high tide lifts all ships. As long as Bitcoin and the other major cryptos continue to move up a little at a time, so will these lower valued cryptos. Satama still continuing to creep up, which is nice. It is at 2025 now. Although it's been a little bit on a downswing the past 24 hours. You can see that it's lost 3.68% of its value over the last 24 hours. Over the last 7 days, it has lost 2.71% of its value. Over the last month in general, it is up 144.28%. That's what you like to see. Over the last 3 months, it is up 113.91%. This is good news for some of us who are holding on to the Satamas. I know they have big plans, so does everybody else, but let's see what happens. I'm not trying to encourage people into cryptocurrencies. I'm just saying if you pay attention and you see some consistent growth in them, then maybe you might want to drop some discretionary funds in there and try to catch a wave in which you can grab some profits off of it, turn around and invest it into gold and silver like you should. People keep asking me about the Russian ruble. Here it is. It's dropped down to 0.014. Not a major loss, but if you look over the last year compared to where it was when the war started, you know, it's been consistent. It's been up there. There's not a major change to it. The economy doesn't seem to be as affected over there as the news likes to tell us that they're suffering with all the sanctions and everything, but that's not the truth. There is a group of people that do YouTube videos. These are people who live in Russia, showing you the cost of foods and goods over there in Russia, saying that, you know, they're not short on supplies and the cost of the goods has not gone up hardly at all. So whatever it is that the Western nations thought they could do to Russia, it doesn't seem to be having that effect on them. Gold currently at $1,914.70 per ounce. You can see here earlier in the day, it took a pretty huge drop. Gold has been consistent in rising in value since the mid-November. But once we got over here, the 2nd of February, it took a huge drop. That's because of the false data that keeps being reported and the message coming from the Federal Reserve. I don't know how much longer they think they can keep up this lie. More and more people are becoming wise to the truth about the data being reported to us. The jobless numbers are false. The real unemployment number is over 24%. I know they want to tell you it's at 3%, but it's not the truth. Inflation isn't around, 6%, 7%? It's actually closer to 16%. The government has just resorted to flat out lying about everything now. And I mean everything. Because they don't want people to get into panic mode. So go ahead and buy gold and silver. If you haven't yet, you're going to be kicking yourself in the ass here real soon. Silver price is at $23.50. It was over $24, and just like gold, it took a major hit. Since mid-November, silver has, as usual, acted like a spastic child on sugar with peaks and valleys. But what I'm looking for is consistency. At least it's still up there between $23 and $24. it looks like it's starting to level out once it got here around the end of December. It hasn't really had a lot of growth. It's just been maintaining, but never going too high up or too low down. So this seems to be about the sweet spot at $23.50. I've been talking about how the US dollar is being used as a weapon to crush currencies around the world. Things are getting really bad. We're noticing that there are countries out there who are using up all of their foreign currency assets so they can protect their currency from devaluing even more. But in some countries, they're just about out. This is a worldwide planned event. You can see here in Pakistan's foreign exchange reserves held by the central bank decreased by 16.1%, down to 3.09 billion in the week ending in January the 7th. Now, some people go out there and go, that's still a lot. But think about how big Pakistan is. 3.9 billion isn't very big. And because all these countries, their currencies are crashing, they're making a huge mistake. But this is, like I said, a planned event. What we're noticing is that all of these countries are either willingly or forced to go to the loan sharks. I'm talking about the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. No countries should ever go to them. They are controlled by the United States. The purpose of them lending money to you is that if you default on your loan, then they want your resources that your country produces. You know, for countries that are out there that are suffering, that have no natural resources, they won't get any kind of love from the IMF. Only countries that have resources, unfortunately. Says the euro and US dollar forecast, Powell's dovishness triggers a US dollar sell-off. The US Federal Reserve Chair, Jay Powell, ended up being much more dovish than anticipated. So, in other words, people were anticipating some hikes in the interest rates, and that doesn't seem to be happening. As a matter of fact, you could look forward to probably sometime towards the middle of this year, the possibility of the Fed cutting rates all over again. The interesting thing is you'll see a lot of articles out there talking about our economy is recovering. We're not in recession. You have stocks and cryptos making a comeback in values, and they're trying to push this false narrative that everything is great. Feel free to spend your money and stop saving it. And then behind everybody's backs, encouraging their rich investors and central banks to purchase even more gold and silver. Do as they do, not as they say. The US dollar is going to lose its reserve status. I mean, it's been planned that way forever. I just looked at a report from the World Economic Forum, a more recent one, and this is something that's been planned for 15 years if you just get into the weeds when it comes to this report. They were saying back in 2015 that the dominance of America is dead. A lot of policies and procedures that are being implemented around the world by the World Economic Forum are meant to strip the United States of their superpower status. They don't believe any one country should have the type of power that the United States has. So ever since then, they've been doing all they could to just crush the US dollar, remove it from its reserve status, and kill off the American dominance is what they're doing. A big part of that is the fact that to avoid sanctions, countries are ditching the US dollar. So a lot of these people are tired of the US using the SWIFT system as a weapon against countries who don't fall in line with what they want. Then our country turns around and tells us that the leaders of these countries are bad people and that they should be removed, and they go on a huge propaganda swing trying to get us to support our government's attacks against countries who don't fall in lockstep with this huge agenda. People are waking up to this and they're not falling for it any longer.
Hans, are we the baddies?
Yes, that's right. Are we the baddies? We've been listening to the mainstream media propaganda for so long, pumping us up, and with the help of Hollywood, they have managed to brainwash us into accepting a non-stop, consistent pattern of war. Under Trump, we didn't start any new wars, which was a good thing, but now that he's out of office, it looks like we are involved in wars once again. mainly Ukraine. And I know the United States is itching to get into something worse. And because of that, and that is what they're going to try to use as an excuse to help stimulate our economy, support the war. They're already doing that with Ukraine. We are once again getting involved in other people's business. China and Russia are not going along with the World Economic Forum's Great Reset agenda, as far as we can tell. And so what usually happens to countries who even dare think about going to a gold-backed currency? Regime change. So it looks like we're starting to push back on China. We have signed new contracts over in the Philippines for military bases. Once again, we had stepped away from that for just a little bit, but we have once again signed new contracts, bringing us that much closer to China, pissing them off. We have boats over there near Taiwan. Countries around the world are tired of being bullied by the baddies, and so they're ditching the US dollar. They're not using it anymore, and the more countries that join this bandwagon is really going to kill the purchasing power of the US dollar. Which is why I keep saying, if you got money in the bank, get it out. Only keep enough in there to pay your bills. Because one day you're going to wake up and we're going to be told that the banks are all dead. The money that's in there has been converted into a central bank digital currency, and that you have to go online and register in order to have access to your money. That's exactly what you're going to do. You won't even have a choice in the matter. Sure, people are going to raise hell, but the powers that be, they're going to fight like hell to make sure that we stay with the central bank digital currency, because it's something they can control. They can program it, it has expiration dates, and it keeps track of everything we do with our money. These people have no intentions on letting people be free. And so there are countries starting to resist against this, as you see, and getting away from the US dollar. More nations plan to ditch the US dollar. You can see right here, it says Washington has been using its currency as a weapon to advance its own hegemony around the world. People are waking up to it. As a result, many citizens' populations have suffered from unilateral American sanctions imposed on countries who are independent or have taken the course towards independence. They want to be free people. In a joint letter, the new Brazil president, Lula, and Argentina's leader, Alberto Fernandez, said they wanted to advance discussions on common South American currency to be used for financial and trade flows. In other words, getting away from the US dollar. President Lula, who has made Buenos Aires his first foreign trip since taking office, says that early talks are focused on developing a shared unit of value for bilateral trade to reduce reliance on the dollar. The purchasing power of the dollar is devaluing, it's losing value. Gold never loses its purchasing power. Under the plan, the Brazilian currency, the real, as well as the Argentina currency, the peso, for example, would continue to exist with the new tender aimed at trade transactions between different Latin countries. And it's not just there, Middle East is talking about doing the same thing as well. Now, what we want to know, is this a trick to put people into the central bank digital currency, or are they going to allow their citizens to continue to use physical cash while they do their trades in digital dollars? Brazil and Argentina are the first and second largest economies in Latin America, respectively. How the plan will be implemented remains to be seen, but statement of intent is very powerful move itself. Now, you got to understand that the progressives like AOC, Seabiscuit herself, and the squad, they all support Lula. He's a socialist. They're happy about him being voted in as a president, and they celebrated him. So are they truly trying to get away from the US dollar and be independent, or are they just trying to get away from the US dollar so they have an excuse to go into the central bank digital currency? That's the trick. Not only Lula is reversing the policies of his predecessor, Bolsonaro, by distancing Brazil from the United States, he is also putting more focus on the region itself. So Trump was like Bolsonaro. They were both anti-World Economic Forum as far as I can tell, but it's really hard to tell who the good guys are from the bad guys these days. The idea of making trade transactions in local currencies as opposed to the US dollar is not limited to Brazil and Argentina or Latin America for that matter. By using your own local currency, it strengthens it. Over the past decade, more countries have made or started similar initiatives to trade in their own currencies in the bid to ditch the US dollar. The dollar is the world's top reserve currency. Washington's policy in using the dollar as a financial weapon has prompted many countries to consider other currencies in their trade. So is the United States purposely weaponizing the US dollar in order to have countries turn against it and destroy the US dollar? Is our currency being destroyed from within? I'm going to say yes, it is. The Democrats are doing a wonderful job by it. And how do you know? Because they keep printing trillions of dollars, telling the American people it's for you, when we get less than 3% of the overall money that they pass in the bills. The rest of the money goes to all their special projects that their friends have, making them all wealthy. They are literally stealing our wealth. In addition to that, over the last 40 years or so, America has done a wonderful job of outsourcing all of the things that we used to manufacture. Our manufacturing jobs are dead. Why do you think Trump tried to bring them all back? But he was forcing companies to come back here to the United States so that we can start manufacturing and that we could take whatever kind of crash is coming. It would be a lot more easier on us the more manufacturing that we did. As soon as Biden got in office, his war against oil has caused prices to go up. He went back to allowing businesses to take their companies overseas so they can use cheaper labor to build products. So we're not really exporting anything anymore. We import everything. So when the purchasing power of the dollar dies, we will suffer. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here in just a moment. I'll cover this article a little bit more another time, but I just want to touch on it just a little bit. This here's George Gammon. I will leave a link for this video so you could go watch the full one. But I wanted to get towards the end here where he's, as a matter of fact, in this video, he does talk about the fact that we don't manufacture no more, and that is going to hurt us in the long run. You should hear what he has to say about it. But let's get back to what he's going to explain happens to us when the US dollar loses its value.
Main takeaway is whichever country is exporting more stuff, they're going to have more tailwind to the value of their currency. But now what has happened since the dollar has been the world reserve currency for so long, it's created structural issues in the United States. Our economy doesn't look like this anymore, where we have a significant manufacturing base and we have services in our economy. Now we barely produce anything, and the services are almost the entire economy.
Remember, I told you this is what Trump tried to change. He tried to force these companies to bring their businesses back here so that we could start being a country that manufactures, because he knew what was coming up.
Especially when you include government spending. So we can't produce the goods necessary to send to another country.
Let me rewind that just a little bit, because listen to what he says happens now.
Manufacturing base, and we have services in our economy. Now we barely produce anything, and the services are almost the entire economy, especially when you include government spending.
Which was what Trump tried to reduce. He tried to stop regulations because he knew it was killing this country. He tried to bring back manufacturing because he knew it would strengthen this country. He tried to reduce the size of government. And you could see the powers that be fought him tooth and nail, and we are where we are now.
So we can't produce the goods necessary to send to another country to actually increase the value of the dollar if it was falling too fast because of these structural issues we talked about. So what happens is the dollar goes down faster and faster and faster if it were to lose reserve currency status. This creates more expensive goods because we have to import all these things from other countries that allow us to consume. And as the dollar goes down in value, those imports get more and more expensive. So our standard of living goes down further and further and further. But you say, George, the government would come in and start spending, especially in today's environment where the Republicans and the Democrats, whether you're on the left or right, the one thing they all favor is more government spending. The problem with this is it creates all these high deficits, or higher and higher deficits. If you look at the deficit as a percentage of GDP prior to the cerveza sickness, it was over 5%. We have never seen levels that high unless we were in a recession. And you hear on Fox News or Trump's Twitter feed, it's the greatest economy in the history of mankind. I don't think so. So what happens to the deficits now? Who's going to buy the treasuries that would allow the government to spend even more money to fill the gap that's been created in consumption by consumer goods rising in price while we're having this deglobalization and all these supply chains trying to come back to the United States? Trying is the key word. Editor, go ahead and throw up a chart of government spending so we can really get our minds around this. As we can see, currently government spending is 50% or almost 50% of GDP.
Look, they're just going to keep making excuses. They're going to say, we need this money to go over and help Ukraine beat the evil Russians. We need this money to do something about the RONA and the jabs and the whole 9 yards. We need this money to help those who have been marginalized. And we need to help all these illegal immigrants come across our borders. And they just keep spending and making excuses to spend. But here's something that's not being done. They're not being accountable for where the money is going. Who is auditing where the money is going and how it's being used? They got rid of that process a long time ago.
But this chart was prior to the cerveza sickness. So I think it's safe to conclude
When he says cerveza sickness, he's talking about the RONA.
that now government spending is over 50% of GDP. Let that sink in for a moment. That means that over half of our economy is a result of the government, not the private sector. And right about now, your friend and family member Fred would step in and said, oh, George is just fear-mongering. That's nonsense. The foreigners will always buy our debt. There will always be a bid for treasuries. Not so fast. Editor, go ahead and throw up the chart so we can see who is currently buying the treasuries. And look at what has happened. The amount of purchasing from the foreigners has really leveled off, but the Fed buying has gone parabolic.
And why is the Fed buying up all of our debt? Because they're cooking the books. You can see here it started pretty close to 2020. You can see this? They're trying to keep the Democrats in office by buying up as much of the debt as possible so it doesn't look like our economy is going to crash, so they can hope to get the same corrupt people back in office for another 4 years. They're just plain ass lying to you. You can see right here, around 2018, that started to change. They were getting rid of the debt. Now, I don't have a problem with this, them buying the debt. The problem is, does this put us into debt to the Federal Reserve is what it looks like. As far as I'm concerned, they can kiss our butt and go bankrupt. Maybe that's what the plan is all along.
So what this is telling us is all this additional debt the government is issuing by running these huge, huge budget deficits is being purchased by the Fed. So they're just printing up funny money and giving it directly to the government. We call that monetizing the debt. Yes, that is what they do in banana republics. If another country or central bank tried to do what we're doing, their currency would just plummet. And you ask, well, why hasn't that happened in Japan? Why hasn't it happened in Europe? Because they produce stuff. So they export things to other countries, which creates demand for their currency. Now, I'm not saying their economies are great. Their economies are just as bad, if not worse structurally than ours, but it's a much different type of problem they have. So really the bottom line here is the end game is pretty much the opposite of what we discussed in step number 2. Rates will go up. This means more expensive debt, lower asset prices. The dollar goes down in value, which makes the goods that we buy more and more expensive. This means we have to underconsume as much as we have overconsumed for the past 40 years until we're able to build back that manufacturing base so we can actually start selling goods to other countries like we would have back in this original example of two countries without the reserve currency. The problem there is if we look at China as an example, it took them 20 years to build this manufacturing base that we need and that we've lost over the past 50, 60 years.
And Trump tried to fix that, and he was hated for it. They call him racist. You know, whatever you think about the man, who gives a crap? One thing's for sure, he did try to force manufacturing back over here so that when a crash comes, the United States wouldn't get hit as hard. He tried to reduce government spending, but the Democrats held a lot of things hostage and against Trump, not to mention them teaming up with rhino Republicans so these people could continue to just drain the wealth from the American people while they got richer. The dollar is losing its purchasing power. That's why I got egg dealers in my neighborhood. They don't even sell drugs anymore. It's not worth as much as eggs. You can see how inflation is causing the cost of goods to go up. He's talking about once the US dollar dies, it's going to even be more expensive. So how do you protect yourself from a crash like that? Go buy gold and silver. You can go do your own research. You'll see that Money Metals has the most competitive prices out there, you guys. Seriously. Not to mention that they're located here in the United States. They're a good Christian family. The CEO, Stephen, works closely with a lot of politicians who are doing their best to bring us back to sound money and to keep gold and silver from being taxed. In some states, they have gotten rid of tax on gold and silver altogether. If you come to their website, go to News and Resources, you can click where it says Sound Money Defense League. This is what Money Metals does. They don't just sit there and sell you gold and silver and precious metals. They are actively involved with legislations that will protect our investment into gold and silver even more. In addition to that, they don't just sell precious metals, but they also buy it. People keep asking me, Pimpy, where do I go to sell my precious metals? Reach out to Money Metals. At least talk to them and see if they offer you something that you're satisfied with. They also have secured storage for your precious metals if you're too nervous to keep it anywhere in your house and you want it to be somewhere safe. So they have that as well. Look, Money Metals usually has the cheapest price out there against the other bullion dealers. If they're not the cheapest, then they're usually the second cheapest. They have the most competitive rates out there. People are warning individuals everywhere. If you have your money in your bank account, and this isn't fear-mongering, you can think that and keep your money there. When you wake up and the money's gone, you'll be like, man, I wish I would have listened to Pimpy. That's fine. I'd rather be careful and be wrong than you leave your money in there and me be right. If you see the central banks around the world all buying up gold and precious metals, you should be doing the same thing. Look, this is what I do. I don't even have my money in the bank. I only leave enough in there every month to cover my bills. That's it. All the rest sits in precious metals. Whenever I need to do a big project and I need to get money, I just take my precious metals and sell some of them. If you don't want to put all your money into precious metals, then at least be wise and move somewhere between 25-30% of your nest eggs over into precious metals. If you want to change your 401ks or your IRAs over into precious metals, reach out to Money Metals and they will help walk you through the process. This will protect you, it protects your family, it protects your wealth. Don't procrastinate. Everybody out there is warning people that the end is coming for banks. You don't want to wake up one day and find out that the banks have closed everybody's accounts and you're being forced into a situation you don't want to be involved in. So you can either come here online, the links are down below in the description, or you can give them a call, 1-800-800-1865. Go ahead and ask them all the questions you want. They'll be happy to help you. Tell them that Pimpy sent you and they'll take really good care of you. Anyways, that's it for now. You guys leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think and I'll get back at you later. I'm out.